The muscle truth your doctor never learned in medical school. You should know this. You are doing everything medically right and still shrinking where it matters. You don't feel sick, but your muscle knows something your doctor never studied: mechanical tension literacy. The truth is uncomfortable. Medicine treats survival, not structure, and that single distinction changes how fast you weaken or stay dominant. This is not an attack on medicine. Medicine saves lives. This is about understanding what medicine was never designed to protect. You follow the advice, you show up for checkups, numbers look fine, and yet strength quietly leaves the room first. That's the problem. Muscle loss doesn't announce itself with alarms. It slips in before illness, before diagnosis, before concern. And the reason it gets missed isn't your discipline. It's a system trained to detect sickness, not structural decline. Once you see that gap clearly, you'll never train or trust your body the same way again. Number 1. Medical school's massive blind spot. Here's what most men unknowingly accept, and it sounds reasonable until you slow it down. You assume your doctor is trained to preserve performance. You assume that if your labs look fine, muscle loss is just normal. You treat annual checkups like strength validation, as if passing a medical test means your body is structurally sound. And that assumption feels logical, until you realize what doctors are actually trained to look for. Medical education is built around pathology, disease, breakdown, emergency. It's about catching what goes wrong fast enough to keep you alive. That's the mission. Force production, tissue resilience, and strength preservation don't fit cleanly into that framework. Muscle in that system is often treated as cosmetic, something nice to have, not something essential to protect. Think of it like a building that passes inspection. The lights work, the doors open, the fire exits are marked, but the beams inside are thinning, slowly losing their ability to carry load. On paper, everything looks fine. In reality, the structure is quietly weakening. Or picture a car with perfect diagnostics, no warning lights, no error codes, but every year it loses horsepower. It still starts, it still runs, it just can't perform the way it used to. That's how muscle loss happens when you only measure health by medical charts. So what to understand instead? Medicine keeps you alive. You must keep yourself capable. That distinction matters more than most men realize. Strength loss is not a side effect of aging. It's a signal. A message that something essential isn't being challenged or maintained. And the body doesn't respond to intentions or checklists. It responds to mechanical tension. That's a language muscle understands immediately and never ignores. When that language disappears, muscle leaves first, quietly, politely, without pain. And because nothing feels wrong, no one calls it a problem. That blind spot doesn't just explain why strength fades early. It sets the stage for something much larger, much quieter, and far more widespread than most men expect. And that's what we need to talk about next. Number 2, the sarcopenia epidemic. Here's the mistake most men make, and it sounds harmless. You treat muscle loss as inevitable aging. You wait for weakness to feel dramatic before you take it seriously. You assume that walking, staying active, and keeping busy is enough to hold the line. It feels sensible. You're moving. You're not sedentary. But muscle doesn't measure effort the way you do. The quiet problem is that muscle loss starts long before disability ever shows up. Strength fades faster than body weight, which is why the scale can stay friendly while your capacity disappears. There's a reason researchers look at grip strength when predicting long-term outcomes. It tells the truth quickly. Muscle doesn't care how active you feel. It cares how often it's asked to produce force. The explanation is simple. Muscle is expensive tissue. It costs energy to maintain. If the body doesn't receive a clear reason to keep it, resources get reallocated elsewhere. Not as punishment, not as failure, as efficiency. The body is always negotiating priorities, and unused muscle is the first thing it quietly downsizes. So what to prioritize instead? Preserving force output, not just movement. Walking keeps you mobile. It does not keep you powerful. Muscle training isn't about aesthetics or chasing compliments. It's insurance. Insurance that you can carry luggage without planning, that you can stand up without leverage tricks, that your body feels reliable, not negotiable, in everyday moments you never want to think about. And here's where this becomes uncomfortable. A lot of the fitness advice most men follow, especially the kind that sounds safe and responsible, actually accelerates this loss. Not because it's useless, but because it trains the wrong adaptation. And once you see which advice does that, you'll understand why so many well-intentioned routines quietly work against you. Number 3. Why cardio is king is outdated. Here's where many men get trapped by good intentions. You lean on endless low-intensity cardio because it feels responsible. You avoid resistance training to protect your joints. You judge a session by sweat, heart rate, and how tired you feel afterward. It looks disciplined, it feels safe, and yet it quietly trains your body to be efficient, not resilient. Cardio trains endurance. That matters. But endurance is about lasting longer under the same demand. Strength training does something different. It trains resilience, the ability to handle load, absorb force, and remain stable when conditions change. One helps you keep going. The other helps you stay intact. Think of it like this. Cardio builds a marathon engine. It can run for miles. Resistance training builds a reinforced chassis. It handles impact, weight, and stress without cracking. The engine might last longer on a smooth road. The chassis survives potholes, sudden stops, and heavy loads. Life looks a lot more like the second scenario than the first. So what to do instead? Make resistance training the foundation. Not extreme, not reckless, structured, progressive. Then use cardio as a supplement, not a replacement. Cardio supports the system. Strength anchors it. And instead of chasing exhaustion, chase adaptation. If the body doesn't need to adapt, it won't change, no matter how tired you feel afterward. The payoff isn't just physical. Confidence changes when your body feels solid. Presence changes when you trust your strength. Work feels easier. Home feels lighter. And this is only part of the story, because muscle doesn't just move you. It communicates internally in ways most men never hear about until they're missing it. Number 4. Muscle is an endocrine organ. Here's where most men underestimate what muscle actually does. You see it as cosmetic tissue, something that looks good in a shirt or fades with time. You assume hormones are managed somewhere else, by glands, prescriptions, or genetics, far away from your training choices. That separation feels logical. It's also incomplete. The core truth is simple but rarely discussed. Muscle releases signaling molecules called myokines. These aren't fringe details. They directly influence insulin sensitivity, inflammation levels, and even brain function. In other words, muscle doesn't respond to hormones. It helps decide how they behave. When muscle contracts under load, it sends messages throughout the body that say, "This system is needed. Keep it sharp." Think of muscle not as dead weight, but as a conversation partner. When it's active, the body listens. When it's quiet, other systems take over, and not always in your favor. This is why two men with identical lab results can feel completely different day to day. One has muscle that communicates, the other has muscle that's been silent for years. So what to build instead? Muscle as metabolic authority, strength as internal regulation, training not just as movement, but as hormone signaling. You're not lifting to burn calories, you're lifting to send instructions. Instructions that improve energy, sharpen mental clarity, and speed up recovery between demanding days. These changes show up where life is actually lived, not just in a gym. And this brings us to a frustrating question. If muscle influences so many systems, why is the final piece of the puzzle almost never prescribed or even mentioned? The answer isn't malicious. It's educational. And once you understand what's missing, you'll see why the solution has been in your hands all along. Before we go any further, I want to check something, quietly. If you've been following closely, type "structure wins" in the comments. Not as a favor, as proof that you value understanding over noise. It tells us you're paying attention to the details most people skip. And if you've made it this far, thank you. That puts you in a very small group that doesn't just consume information, but actually processes it. Because of that, there's a bonus point coming next. Something rarely discussed, rarely prescribed, and only useful if you've understood everything up to this moment. Bonus point: the protein prescription they never give. This is a bonus point, specifically as a thank you for staying with us to this stage of the video. If you're still listening, you're part of our real community, and we appreciate that more than you know. Here's the mistake most men never realize they're making. You follow minimal protein guidelines. You assume the recommended daily amount is designed to protect your strength. You think, if it were important, my doctor would have mentioned it. But those guidelines were never built for preservation. They were built for survival. Enough protein to avoid deficiency, not enough to defend muscle. So what to use instead? Think of protein as daily structural maintenance, not a supplement, not a phase. Maintenance. Just like you don't wait for a roof to collapse before fixing it, muscle needs steady input to stay intact. And here's where it gets interesting. Distribution matters more than totals. Spreading protein across meals sends repeated signals to preserve tissue instead of one weak message the body ignores. Timing matters too. Protein isn't just fuel, it's an anti-frailty strategy, especially earlier in the day when muscle is most responsive. This isn't about extremes, it's about consistency and intent. Why don't doctors prescribe this clearly? 2 reasons. Nutrition education is limited, and there's caution around overprescription. Understandable, but the result is silence, and silence costs muscle. The impact of getting this right is quiet but profound. Better muscle retention, faster recovery, long-term independence. The kind you feel when your body cooperates instead of negotiates. Now let's bring this all together. Number 1, medical school's blind spot. Medicine treats disease, not declining structure. Number 2, the sarcopenia epidemic. Muscle loss starts early and stays quiet. Number 3, cardio is not king. Endurance without strength accelerates weakness. Number 4, muscle is an endocrine organ. Muscle communicates, regulates, and protects. Bonus, the protein prescription. Survival guidelines aren't preservation strategies. This entire conversation comes back to 3 things. Muscle as independence, structure over symptoms, strength as self-respect. If this helped you see your body differently, like the video, it supports our growth and helps YouTube show this to men who need it. Subscribe to the channel for daily content like this, and share this with someone you know will benefit from understanding it sooner rather than later. Thank you for watching. We've recommended another video on your screen that builds perfectly on what you learned here. We'll see you back soon.